Joe Biden knows how to do this.
Yes.
He knows how to do this. He's quite good at this. And, you know, you can't refute anything with him because he just, when I say him, I mean...
He rambles.
Trump.
Yeah.
He tends to just...
But can I mention one thing?
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
And this is why, of course, she's on The View and not working for the most powerful man in the world, because Karoline would wipe the floor with you bitter banshees any day.
Just a few days ago, the political world was shaken by a fiery clash that had everyone talking. A full-blown verbal smackdown between the brand-new White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, and daytime TV heavyweight Whoopi Goldberg. But what you didn't see were the messy, jaw-dropping aftershocks that came crashing down once the cameras stopped rolling. And trust us, it wasn't pretty. You thought the showdown itself was explosive? That was only the opening act. The real drama began behind the scenes, and it's messier, louder, and more outrageous than anything that aired live.
I, too, am a working mom and always have been. I've been a professional woman since I graduated from college or law school. But now there's, I think, a good thing, which is like the restoration of valuing so-called traditional, moms, and that's great. The women who take care of their kids full time. Most of my best friends are doing exactly that. But it seems like in the right, there's like a bit of a shift toward like, you can't do what Karoline's doing. That's actually like an unsafe or a dangerous or a bad choice for families, for children, which I reject wholesale, but you hear it more and more.
Yeah.
Do you hear that, and what do you think of it?
This wasn't just a clash of opinions. This turned into a cultural war zone. Now let's rewind a bit. Karoline Leavitt is more than just the youngest person to ever step behind that White House podium. She's a working mom, a law school graduate, and someone who's never backed down from a fight. She's proud of juggling her career and her family. And she's not afraid to say so loud and clear. In fact, she called it a sign of progress that stay-at-home moms are finally being respected again, while also defending her right to build a career.
I would reject that it's a bad choice. Is it a tough choice? Absolutely. You know, as a mother, you want to be with your child 24/7. You have that maternal instinct.
27.
Yeah. Not all the time. Well, right now, yes, because he's 7 months and just squishy and lovable, but I'm sure that will change. No, but you know, you do have that maternal instinct, but also recognizing, like, I'm doing this work for my son and for all children to make this country better. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yes.
It's also it's temporary, right? In 4 years, my son will be 4 years old and the president will no longer be at the White House. And then I'll move on and do something else. But, you know, this chaos of 24/7 work is a temporary matter. And that's what at least I tell myself to get through these very long and hard days. But I would reject that you can't be a good mom and be good at your job. I think you can do both. It certainly it's not for everybody. And it takes a lot of work and will and faith and prayer. And it's hard, but it can be done. And, you know, I would reject that.
She even praised the women who chose motherhood as a full-time job, saying their work is absolutely invaluable. But then came the heat, and things escalated fast. Karoline didn't shy away from calling out those on the right who've started implying that her decision to work is somehow selfish or even dangerous. She was having none of it. That was the moment she drew a firm line in the sand and shut the whole debate down with one powerful truth. Choosing to work while raising a child is not a betrayal. It's not reckless, and it's definitely not shameful. But of course, that's when the usual suspects showed up. The outrage machine kicked into full gear. Critics came out in swarms, accusing her of being a bad mom just because she dared to do what millions of women do every day: work while raising a child. And when she dared to challenge Whoopi's status as the reigning queen of daytime talk, the mob didn't hold back. They attacked with the same tired, petty tactics we've seen 100 times before. But this time, they got a fight they weren't ready for. Instead of coming at her with actual arguments or facts, they pulled one of the oldest tricks in the book, dragging her back in time with outdated insults straight out of the 1950s. They questioned how a mother with a 7-month-old could possibly hold a demanding job. That's right. The same people who scream about empowerment suddenly hit pause when it's a conservative woman living the message they claim to champion. The hypocrisy was blinding. One minute they shout, "Women can have it all." The next minute they act like Karoline should be barefoot in a kitchen. It's like they completely forgot their own rules the moment she walked into the room. She wasn't just being judged, she was being punished for succeeding outside of their narrative. Apparently, if you're not following their script word for word, then your success isn't valid. They want women to have choices, but only if those choices match their politics. If you take a different path, suddenly your worth is up for debate. But Karoline didn't flinch. She stood firm and spoke out with calm defiance, saying what millions of working mothers already know deep in their bones. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's exhausting. But yes, it's possible. And yes, it's worth every second. She admitted the toughest part is being away from her baby. And she said it with real emotion. That longing, that ache to be near her child, is something every parent understands. But she's not working to avoid motherhood. She's working because she wants to build a stronger future for her child. And for the country that child will grow up in. That's what makes the sacrifice worth it. And then she said something that stopped everyone cold. This season of life isn't forever. In just a few years, her baby will be older. Her time in the White House will end. But the difference she's making? That will last. That kind of perspective. It doesn't come from talking points. It comes from conviction. She reminded everyone that you don't need to choose between being a good mother and having a meaningful job. You can do both. And she's living proof of it. No sugarcoating, no playing the victim. Just raw, honest truth. She said it's tough, it takes courage, it takes sacrifice, but it's not impossible. And anyone who says it is, dead wrong. That moment silenced her critics for about 5 seconds. Then the outrage machine kicked into overdrive, because nothing enrages the mob more than a woman who won't apologize for being confident, competent, and unapologetically herself. And that's exactly what she was. Unapologetic. She even showed respect to stay-at-home moms while holding her own ground, proving that you can value all choices without tearing one down. It's a concept that the modern media circus just can't seem to grasp. While Karoline was calmly explaining her position, the outrage mob on social media was frothing at the mouth, desperately trying to paint her as selfish, robotic, cold. But their insults bounced right off. She wasn't rattled, she was focused. Because unlike them, she didn't need to tear others down to lift herself up. Meanwhile, the same critics who loved to chant, "You do you," couldn't handle a woman doing exactly that. Unless she was following their agenda to the letter. Karoline chose her own path. And that terrified them. They couldn't beat her on facts, so they tried to crush her with mockery. But every attack only made her stronger. And the public took notice. People began to call out the double standard, the hypocrisy, the way her critics were disguising resentment as concern. And just when it seemed like the story couldn't get more bizarre, enter the conspiracy nonsense. Out of nowhere, wild accusations started flying. One of them claiming that Elon Musk was plotting to push Donald Trump down a staircase. Yes, really, that's where we are now. Instead of addressing real issues, some people actually entertained this absurd fantasy like it belonged in a Hollywood thriller. It was ridiculous beyond belief. Elon Musk, the man building electric cars and launching rockets, apparently had time to become a cartoon villain in a political soap opera. Give us a break. And of course, Karoline didn't let that slide. She shut it down in seconds with pure clarity and confidence, calling the whole thing out for what it was. Nonsense. The fact that such a wild accusation even needed to be addressed just shows how far off the rails the discourse has gone.
And I gotta ask you, because they said it, are you aware of any plots from Elon Musk to push President Trump down the stairs?
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that. And watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality.
And here's where the real irony kicks in. These are the same people who constantly accuse others of spreading conspiracy theories. The same people who act like they're guardians of truth and facts. But when they're desperate, out come the wild plots, the dramatic fiction, the unhinged speculation. For years, they mocked conservatives for asking hard questions or challenging media narratives. But now they're pushing staircase sabotage stories like they're reading from a rejected script for a spy movie. The contradiction is so bold, it would be laughable if it weren't so alarming. And through it all, Karoline stood calm and collected, refusing to play their game, refusing to take the bait, and reminding everyone that truth doesn't need a tinfoil hat to be heard. But the circus didn't end there. Not even close. Because once the truth started gaining traction, the outrage mob did what it always does when it feels exposed. It pivoted. And this time, the attack turned personal. They didn't just go after Karoline's choices, her beliefs, or her politics. They went after her identity, her worth, her very presence in the White House. Instead of debating her policies, they started tossing out tired, low-blow insults, asking if she only got the job because, as some claimed, she was easy on the eyes. That's where the mask slipped. These were the same people who constantly preach about feminism and equality, now suggesting a woman was promoted for her looks. The hypocrisy? Off the charts. And one of the loudest voices in that echo chamber? Joy Behar.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
She smirked on air and repeated the ridiculous claim that Karoline was hired because Trump allegedly said she's a 10. Not only was that a gross reduction of a woman's accomplishments, but it revealed something else. Desperation. Joy wasn't debating. She wasn't arguing substance. She was throwing a tantrum. She couldn't compete with Karoline's poise, sharp mind, or clear communication, so she took the cheap shot. And the worst part? She did it with a smile, as if mocking a working woman's success was somehow empowering. It wasn't. It was pathetic. This is the kind of toxic double standard that women like Karoline face every single day. Being told they can succeed, but only in a certain way, only under certain conditions, only with the right allies cheering them on. Step outside that box? They'll come for your family, your values, and even your face. But Karoline didn't blink. She didn't rage. She didn't cry foul. She just kept going. Because she didn't need validation from people who never gave it in good faith. She knew her record spoke louder than any insult ever could. She had already worked in the White House before this. She had served as national spokesperson for the Trump campaign, helped shape messaging that cut through media noise, and ran a powerful congressional campaign that nearly flipped a district most thought was unwinnable. She wasn't handed anything, she fought for it, and it showed. Every time she stepped behind the podium, she did more than deliver sound bites. She delivered results. And while her critics scrambled to find something, anything, to use against her, she made one thing painfully clear. She wasn't going anywhere. But the attacks didn't stop. They said she was abandoning her baby, that she was choosing power over parenting, as if being a devoted mother and a dedicated professional couldn't coexist, as if ambition was somehow incompatible with love. They'd never say that about a liberal mom, not in a million years. In fact, they'd celebrate it, call it brave, bold, inspirational. But for Karoline, the tone changed instantly. Suddenly, she was selfish, neglectful, cold. It wasn't about motherhood, it was about control. That's the game. They don't care about the baby. They care about silencing the woman holding him. because her presence threatens their narrative. Her voice challenges their authority. Her strength makes their manufactured outrage look like exactly what it is. Performative. She became the symbol of everything they couldn't control. Young, smart, driven, fearless, and not just a conservative, but a conservative who refused to be quiet.
She's a very nice-looking lady, but it isn't true that that's why she got the job. She got the job because she was the national spokesman for the campaign, and she did a very good job in that role. And the campaign was hugely successful and communicated very effectively. That is why she got the job. Even if Karoline Leavitt weren't a pretty lady, even if she were a male, gremlin, monstrous-looking fellow, she still would have gotten the job based on how effective the campaign communications was. Furthermore, Karoline Leavitt ran for Congress. I was talking to Roger Stone about this when we were trying to figure out who the picks for the administration were going to be. He said, I think Leavitt's going to get the White House press sec job. I think she earned the job, and I like that she has been in the fire.
That's what really drove them over the edge. Even conservative commentators took notice. Some admitted the obvious. Yes, she's a beautiful woman, but that's not why she's where she is. She's there because she earned it, because she's good at what she does. And no amount of jealousy disguised as critique can erase that. She won her primary against experienced, well-funded opponents, many of whom had deep connections to the Trump administration. That race wasn't supposed to be hers to win. But she didn't just win, she dominated. And while she lost the general election, it was far from a landslide. She came close. Too close for comfort, apparently. That campaign toughened her, sharpened her, and prepared her for the national spotlight. So now, when reporters try to rattle her with loaded questions, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't fumble. She doesn't even pause. While others come to briefings with thick binders, pre-written statements, and rehearsed lines, Karoline walks in armed with facts, clarity, and confidence. She doesn't need to flip through notes, because she's been living these issues for years. She even joked once that the binder her assistant gave her was so heavy, she left it behind.
How do you prepare? Because you can't know everything, and you could get asked anything. And unlike Karine Jean-Pierre, you're not out there reading and furiously flipping through your tabs to try to find an answer somebody else has written for you. So how are you preparing?
So I did prepare a binder for the first briefing. My great assistant, Keegan, put it together. And then I showed up to work, and it was like this thick. And I was like, I can't even move this. I can't use this. It was too cumbersome for my brain and the way I learn and think and study to have that. It felt like added weight. And I said, I want to just go in there and speak from my mind and from my heart.
Like your boss.
Like my boss. And I've been working for my boss now on the campaign. I know the policies we're enacting. We've been talking about them for years. And in school, I was that way. Like studying, I would just read, highlight, memorize, articulate.
And then it goes off to the side.
Yeah.
And you talk.
Exactly.
That wasn't arrogance. It was a statement. She didn't need filler. She came prepared. She didn't memorize a script. She became the script. In school, she wasn't the kind to drone through prepared speeches. She studied, memorized, internalized, and delivered. That same skill now lets her stand at the center of the media storm and remain completely in control. That's why she terrifies her critics. She doesn't stumble. She doesn't rely on spin. She talks straight. And in a world full of scripted nonsense, that kind of raw, unfiltered truth is both rare and incredibly powerful.
You must have really wrestled with how you were going to meet the high bar set by Karine Jean-Pierre. Was that... Sorry. Was that out loud? No, she was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So how has your approach differed, would you say?
I think it's vastly different. And if you ask people, even in the legacy media, even the Trump haters, they will tell you the approach has been much different. Not just for me, but the entire White House. Oh, absolutely. They come in my office every day and they'll admit that off the record. Oh. Maybe not on the record, but they will say they appreciate the access and the transparency and the preparation that goes into my briefings, and everybody on our team, by the way, who goes out to the cameras and speaks. We have great policy experts, who are great spokespeople for the president.
The media elites don't know how to respond. She doesn't use complicated jargon. She speaks plainly, directly, to real people. And that connection? It's not something you can fake. While they scramble for sound bites, she delivers punches, and people listen. Because it's not just what she says, it's how she says it. With confidence, with conviction, with absolute control. And the more they try to trip her up, the more she shines. They insult, she answers. They attack, she defends. They scream, she stays calm. And in every exchange, she walks away a little stronger.
According to an IG report from the Social Security Administration, there was $71 billion worth of fraud in one single fiscal year that we know about. And so that is a lot of fraud, Peter.
To be clear, that $71 billion was from 2015 to 2022, so it wasn't in just one year. And it was
$71 billion.
But it wasn't in one year, just over multiple years from 2015 to 2022.
So are you defending $71 billion in fraud, Peter? That's a lot of money. Why is the media so against cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from the government? I don't get it.
I just want to ask a question.
We won't be deterred. We will not be deterred from people like you and the press.
While they grow more unhinged. The outrage mob is used to people folding, apologizing, backtracking. Karoline does none of that. She looks them dead in the eye and says what needs to be said, even if it's uncomfortable, especially then. And they hate it, because they've built an entire ecosystem on fragile outrage and emotional manipulation. But she cuts through all of that like a knife. She doesn't try to please everyone. She speaks truth, even when it burns. So, they reached for the last weapon in their arsenal, public humiliation. They tried to strip her of her dignity by reducing her to a number, a rating, a comment from a former president, as if her entire career could be erased by a single remark. But it didn't work. Because Karoline isn't just surviving in the spotlight. She's thriving in it. Every insult bounces off her. Every dig makes her stronger. Every cheap shot exposes how shallow her critics really are.
The CNN guy, Jim Acosta? Oh, wait, he's not on CNN anymore. That's right. He was like, it was just so, I would say, you don't mind the aggressive questions, you take the aggressive questions, but it was just always to the point that it was like, how do you destroy Donald Trump? How do you destroy the individuals of staff? It was so, when they do say Trump derangement syndrome, and I do think that there's also Elon Musk derangement syndrome happening too with the media, because they don't know how to handle it. How do you view that differently from the first administration till now? Because it was a lot of dealing with Russian hoax at the beginning, special counsels. It was constant because the media was trying so hard to, and they never apologized, right? They didn't apologize about the Russian hoax. Yeah, that's right, they didn't. So this time around, it's a very different strategy that you all are taking forward. What is that strategy?
Well, first of all, since you brought up Jim Acosta, he's been saying some not so nice things about me online, and I've resisted responding, but since you brought him up, I'd like to say to Jim, at least I have a job, Jim, okay? Just saying.
While they obsess over appearances, she's focused on results. While they mock, she builds. While they spiral, she climbs. And the audience sees it, clear as day. Her success isn't just about politics anymore. It's a message, a warning, that you don't need media approval to rise, that you don't need Hollywood's blessing to lead, that you can be young, female, conservative, and absolutely unstoppable. And that more than anything is what has the left in a panic. By now, the message was clear. Karoline Leavitt had become a political force the media couldn't ignore and the left couldn't control. Every time they threw a punch, she came back with facts. Every insult was met with sharp, unwavering truth. And still, they kept swinging. When all else failed, Whoopi Goldberg made a move so bizarre it left viewers stunned. During a segment on Trump, she spat, literally spat, after saying his name, right there on live television. A grown woman on national TV, spitting like she was in some kind of cartoon tantrum. This wasn't satire. It wasn't clever. It was unhinged. The panel acted like this was normal, but it wasn't. It was desperate, And Karoline knew it. She called it out immediately, asking the question on everyone's mind. Is this what debate looks like now? There were no answers, just awkward silence. Because everyone knew she was right. While Whoopi and her co-hosts lashed out with theatrical rage, Karoline stood calm, composed, and unbothered. She didn't need theatrics, she had the truth. And people were watching. Clips of Joy Behar's outburst went viral, not as some triumphant moment, but as a warning of just how far discourse had fallen.
Now to the cackling witch herself, Joy Behar from The View, whose jealousy is something to behold. Here is her assessment of Trump's new White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
The ever-empowering feminist, Joy herself, everyone. And this is why, of course, she's on The View and not working for the most powerful man in the world, because Karoline would wipe the floor with you bitter banshees any day.
Social media exploded. Memes mocked the panel. Viewers called it shameful. Some even said they felt embarrassed for them. It was clear. The show had crossed a line, and Karoline didn't have to do anything except tell the truth. Even as the insults got uglier, Karoline stayed cool. She reminded the world that her mission wasn't personal. It was about service, truth, and doing her job with integrity. And that's what made her dangerous. Not because she yelled, but because she didn't have to. They couldn't paint her as angry, emotional, or irrational. Because she wasn't. She was calm. And that calm tore through the hysteria like lightning. Every press briefing, every mic drop moment exposed just how fragile the media's narrative had become. And still, they came for her, calling her a token, a puppet, a pretty face. Anything to dismiss what she represented. A young conservative woman who wouldn't bow, wouldn't break, and wouldn't be boxed in. But here's the truth they couldn't face. She didn't need them. Karoline Leavitt didn't rise because of the media. She rose in spite of it. Every time they underestimated her, she proved them wrong. Every time they mocked her, she got stronger. Every time they tried to silence her, her voice reached even further. And that's what truly terrified them. Not just that she was winning, but that she was doing it without their permission. She wasn't just rewriting the rules, she was tearing up the whole script. And in the end, that may be her greatest threat to them of all. Because if Karoline Leavitt succeeds, it means others like her will follow. And when that happens, the old game is over. And maybe, just maybe, that's what they fear most. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more content like this, so hit that like button and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And please make sure to check out these other videos you might like. See you guys in the next video. Till then, take care and goodbye.